Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Nicola Rosa, and I'm the extended reality lead for Accenture UK and Ireland. And I'm here today to talk to you about extended reality, machine learning, and the future of humanity. Specifically, our work is a combination of machine learning and deep analytics that will lead to a change in the way that we live, we work, and we learn. Now, before you ask, we are not going to build Skynet or the Matrix. Probably we're going to build Tron, hopefully. But basically, what I want to tell you is a story about my beliefs in the technology as a tool to transform humanity. I'm a strategist and a creative technologist, and I truly believe in digital transformation. But this transformation that we're seeing right now with digital technology is not unique. This happened before and is an evolution, continual evolution of humankind. Like, for example, when humans traded the stone, we passed from the Stone Age to the Bronze Age, or where we traded manual production techniques to machine-led production techniques during the first industrial revolution, or during the mass purchasing of cars in the first half of the previous century, or the launch of the World Wide Web in 1991. All those events deeply changed the way that we work, we live, and we behave in our society. Now, when you consider how physically demanding work has been throughout the century, you really start appreciating how even the smallest changes in the way that we work have a meaningful impact on our lives and are extremely important, no matter how small. And of course, you may think that associating extended reality to such monumental changes in human history could be a little bit of dramatic. But the truth is that XR possesses the power to change our life for the better. Now, although the first working VR headset has been created in 1968, it's only in the past 5 years that we've seen an acceleration of the technology. And most of the people have been able to get their hands on the devices and try it by themselves. And I say most of the people because I know that there are very few around the world, and I believe that many are here in this room right now, that have always felt passionate about extended reality and VR. And I'm one of those people. I purchased my first headset when I was only 17, VFX1 from Forte Technologies. And you can imagine how a 17-year-old was using a virtual reality headset in the very southern part of Italy, in a little place called Potenza, and experienced those amazing flight simulators and experiences of video games. I spent something like 1.2 million liras to buy one of those devices that were basically all my savings, and my father actually wasn't happy about it, as you can imagine. But it's not just VR enthusiasts like us that fuel this kind of technology and this evolution of the technology. Many industries, especially aerospace and defense, have always leveraged this kind of technology in the last 40 years to create new and transformational experiences. But again, it's been only in the past 5 years that there's been an acceleration of the technology, and many of the companies and industries recognize extended reality as a meaningful tool for digital transformation. But now I want to tell you how extended reality can really change and transform our lives. So if you go on Google and you search for Accenture Tech Trends 2018, you can download a report where extended reality is one of our first 5 tech trends for 2018. The tagline for extended reality is the end of distance. So many people believe that end of distance means the distance from physical people, communication, so human-to-human interaction. I believe that this has already been achieved using technologies like, for example, Skype or iMessage. The real end of distance, from my point of view and from our Accenture point of view, is the distance between the physical and the digital that are now converging together and are using extended reality as a portal for us to step into virtual worlds and augmented reality to bring digital content into our real world. And many companies right now are already leveraging this kind of technology. Like, for example, I'm talking about industrial design studios. I'm talking about, for example, procurement teams all around the world. I know that some automotive companies right now are running their procurement meetings using virtual reality, because it's easier to manipulate data with your own hands in a natural way. So another example of how extended reality can transform a life is solving the attention switch problem. Ori Unibar, our host here at AWE and one of the founders of SuperVentures, mentioned that solving the attention switch could increase the global GDP by 20%. So you can imagine the impact that this technology can have for companies all around the world. And of course, this is the king. Probably the most impactful use case of all, XR for education. This is the Edgar Dale cone of learning, or cone of experience, as you want to call it. Edgar Dale was a researcher that studied how people usually learn and assessed that after 2 weeks, people tend to remember only 10% of what they read, but up to 90% of what they do by themselves. So experiential learning is extremely important to create engagement and meaningful memory and impactful memory for the user. And this, of course, will incur in cost reduction because scaling will enable the distribution of the experiences throughout all the enterprise. But if you see all the experiences that truly transformed our life, I'm talking about mobile experiences that we have right now all in our pockets. And I mean, I think that most of you used an application called Uber or another application that is called Shazam. All of those experiences right now are fueled by deep analytics services in the background. They're working to provide you contextual information that is exactly what you need whenever you need it. And they become smarter and smarter the more you use them. And this is the true way, the real way to have true digital transformation. Creating systems that will become smarter and will provide contextual information and will be able to help you solve a pain point or a problem that you're having in your everyday life. So this is something that we decided to explore at our team at the Dock in Dublin, where we are combining extended reality, advanced analytics, and machine learning to find new ways to augment human performance. The Dock is our Accenture global research and development team, a place where we research, we experiment, and we find new solutions. To be honest with you, is a little bit more like the Dock of Dr. Emmett Brown from Back to the Future. It's a place where you find amazing toys glued together to work in unpredictable ways. In its current form, the experience that we created, it's called BioVR, is basically an application that guides and monitors trainees through a pharmaceutical clean room scenario that is typically a very expensive scenario to replicate. BioVR uses the key VR techniques of storytelling, interaction guidance, and performance tracking to track and teach users, to the users how to combine together substances in a clean room scenario. We also use a personal assistant that is guiding the user throughout all the experience, so the user is able to learn by seeing, which is basically the best way of learning to learn anything. But there is a problem. When we were investigating this use case, we found out that assessing the training effectiveness is extremely difficult. Assessing the training effectiveness in a real way, because most of the VR experiences right now are leveraging technology that is directly inherited by the video game industry. And I'm talking about achievements mechanics that involve collision detection, or, for example, time to complete a task, or sequential task completion. So we tried to solve this problem at the Dock. And basically, we've been able to achieve in-depth analytics, tracking biometric data, and like, for example, galvanic response or heartbeat detection using wearable devices, and full body tracking, and hands tracking, and gaze tracking. And using this kind of data points, we were able to track movements in space. So we analyzed this data in order to predict the patterns that lead to errors during a task that a user is doing. So in this way, we are able to collect a data set. And we discovered the overall level of dexterity of the user. And we can also predict how many times the user has to perform the training in order to achieve a certain level of dexterity. Also, when the user replicates those movements that usually lead to errors, we're also able to detect when the user are about to commit an error. And we can warn the user. So it's predictive analytics for errors. Now, as we said, in a nutshell, machine learning studies the collective data that lead to patterns that create errors. So we can prevent these errors to happen in the future. So the goal is to create systems that will enable workers to work in a safer way and for companies to focus on process optimization to understand where the users usually fail in what they're doing. So in order to synthesize the insights that we detect in this kind of experience, we created a dashboard. This dashboard is a tool where we aggregate the key performance data of the experience. We track the performance of the user. We do a skill assessment. We understand and personalize the learning experience, because of course the learning experience is personalized based on the task that the user is able to do better. And also we understand where people and user commonly fail in general. So we can understand how many times the user have to run the simulation in order to achieve a certain level of dexterity. And we can also predict the overall company and employees' progression to the next skill level. Similarly, there's another benefit for this kind of experience, which is basically data portability. We assess that as we are tracking vectors of movement in space and spatial data, we can bring all the data that we collect in virtual reality to augmented reality in order to enable predictive analytics for connected worker solutions. Of course, right now, some of the headsets have a limited capacity of tracking hands and a limited capacity of tracking the world around us. But we already done some experiments, and we have the team right here that can tell you the story on how they came up with these results later on. We've been able to do successfully predictive analytics in an augmented reality scenario. But it's not just this. As we're talking about spatial data, we can use exactly the same spatial data that we use for predictive analytics and performance assessment in VR, and predictive analytics for augmented reality, for real-time warnings for the connected worker, also for full automation and robotics. So this is the long-term goal of the project. We are working on it, but we know that the solution is there. And I guess that it makes perfect sense for me to do this kind of project, and I'll tell you a little bit of my story, why I'm doing this. This is my father, Nicola Rosa. He's an expert in workplace safety. And I spent basically most of the 80s listening to his horror stories of accidents that he was investigating on working sites. Well, I remember a particular day when he came back home after he investigated an accident that happened in a steel mill, which is, as you know, one of the most dangerous environments in the world. One of the workers spilled some of molten iron on his face, and you can imagine that when my father came back home, he looked a little bit like a ghost, and I will never forget that. So my father said that if real protocols, safety protocols, and proper training have been put in place in that steel mill, the accident wouldn't happen. And if you can imagine, in the southern part of Italy, during the 80s, was really difficult to have safety measures and proper training due to a lot of political problems, as you can imagine. So why are we doing this? We are doing this to bring people back to their families, to improve productivity, and to make this world, a better place. And let me give you a brief overview on how we came up to this solution at the dock. Well, we have an incredibly talented team at the dock, and we have some of them here in the public, Richard and Holly's team. The dock is this amazing place where we pull together technology like Lego blocks, and is pretty mesmerizing. And the guys were absolutely excited to investigate the use case of VR training. While doing this experience of BioVR, the team came up with this result that virtual reality experience creates a lot of spatial data. Something like 2 million data points in 10 minutes. So we asked ourselves, how can we leverage those data? How can we create something meaningful from all those spatial movements and from those biometric data? So during our research, our applied intelligence team found out that those data can enable us to predict errors in a specific environment, which is perfect for a VR training use. And this presented us a short-term and a long-term use. So the short-term, as we said, is to assess the level of skill of the user and to understand how many times the user has to run a simulation in order to achieve a specific level of dexterity, but also to understand which are the best process for real-life scenarios where the worker performs the action, and also we are able to understand which is the optimum process for a specific task in a determined set of constraints for robotics and automation. So as you can imagine, when you shoot for the moon, there's been a lot of trial and error, and this happens with any new kind of technology. These are really the early days of virtual reality and augmented reality, or XR, as you want to call it. And in some way, it reminds me of when Georges Méliès created A Trip to the Moon, this mesmerizing feature film that's, with ingenuity, used the limited technology of that era to create something that's amazed people in 1902 and still does today. But as we all know, Méliès was barely scratching the surface of extended reality, of motion picture as a medium. And so we're doing right now with extended reality. I truly believe that the iPhone moment that everyone is waiting for extended reality, will happen within the next 5 years, 3 to 5 years. Technologies like 5G and the collision of the convergence of ergonomics and user experience and business models will create that iPhone moment. Augmented reality and virtual reality will be rendered in the cloud and will be delivered to very inexpensive devices. And this will democratize the technology for everyone. And advanced analytics and machine learning will be basically the foundation of every transformational application that will run on those devices. Exactly as machine learning and advanced analytics are the foundation of all the applications that we have in our mobile phones right now. So imagine a not too distant future where everyone will be able to have an assistant connected to the cloud that will show us everything that we need in a contextual way, directly on our field of vision, and will learn from the collective errors of other users, and will help us to avoid those errors in real life. Will be a world where also we'll be able to automate taxing and dangerous tasks, where human beings will have supervisory and collaborative roles. Basically, we will learn from the virtual errors of other people, and we'll train the machines to do the work for us in virtual reality. And it will be a world where humanity will be free from dangerous and demanding work. And for the people that don't understand and maybe don't understand the potential of the technology, don't understand the true meaning of extended reality, this will be like another footnote on the long history of technology. But for us, for you, for people here that are at AWE, that recognize the true transformational meaning of extended reality, basically, the realms of reality and what we believe and in our consciousness will be completely transformed. The medium is the message. The reality itself will be transformed. As Marshall McLuhan used to say, the medium is the message. And we'll be able to emotionally connect with each other in ways like never ever before. We'll be able to understand and learn from errors of our fellow human beings and understand their emotions through smart and inspiring XR experiences that will enable us to walk a day in someone else's shoes. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Nick. You up for some Q&A?
Yes.
Okay, then let's start with the questions that we do have here on the screen. Starting with, do you believe that the future of humanity with XR will be bright superpowers or dark total surveillance?
Oh, wow.
Talking Terminator again.
That's an interesting one. I believe that right now we are all trading some of our freedom and our privacy for services. If those services will be able to save human lives and will make our life better, why not? I believe that will be a world with superpowers. We're all using Google Maps right now, and Google knows where we are. We're all using Uber right now, and Uber knows where we go. So
some are using Tinder, and they know where we are.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so it's you more on the positive side. There's going to be some.
Totally. I believe that the future looks bright. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here.
Okay. Go for the next one. What are some of the ethical considerations around capturing employee performance? How do operators feel about it? It's pretty much like the follow-up question to the one before.
Absolutely. So as I said before, I believe that the ethical considerations are directly related to the safety measures. If we are saving someone's life and if we're making their job better, I believe that at the beginning, of course, it's going to be probably an opt-in kind of procedure. But in the future, when everybody will recognize the value of these transformational experiences and this transformational application, basically everyone will opt in because they all want to go back to their families at the end of the day.
Understandable.
We have time for another one?
Yeah. As long as we do see questions, it means that we have time. All of a sudden, when you just see like AWE, it's like, go. But now it's by monitoring the performance and failures of a worker, you are gathering data that is quite sensitive. How do you deal with privacy matters of the worker? So again, following up the previous one.
Well, we usually try to anonymize the data that we are capturing. All the data that we captured are of course, biometric data, but when we use those data to train our models in our machine learning algorithms, we anonymize those data. So basically, nobody knows where that kind of performance is coming from. We are doing it for predictive analytics, and the user is able to use their own performance, their own data as they want for their own sake. Eventually, what we could do is to put in place some additional safety measures. So everybody's talking about blockchain. So why not? We can eventually improve the safety and access to the data of the worker based on the worker's will.
Okay. And coming for the next one, it's a tech question. I mean, it's two different animals, but anyway, why did you choose the HTC Vive versus the Oculus?
Well, we started the prototype with the Oculus. I believe that's because it's a better setup in terms of hands tracking. We're still waiting to have our Knuckles controller from HTC. So if someone from HTC is in the crowd, please send us some Knuckles controllers.
Yeah, I don't mind getting one too. Just throwing that in. It's like, you know.
But yeah, finger tracking and full hands tracking is important. We also experimented with lip motion, by the way, with an HTC Vive. So.
All right, then, Nicolas, thank you for all the answers. As you can see,
thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Grazie mille. Thank you. Nicola Rosa.